Picture this. It is a dark, just relentlessly rainy night in New York City.
Oh, setting the mood right away. I like it.
You know, I have to. I mean, it's a kind of a heavy, oppressive rain, right? The kind that washes the streets clean but leaves this slick, distorted mirror over the asphalt. And it's exactly 2:17 a.m.
Very specific time.
Very specific. So put yourself in the shoes of Detective Ethan Cross. You're sitting in the precinct. The coffee went cold like hours ago. The radios are just giving off nothing but this low rhythmic static.
Yeah, the graveyard shift lull.
Exactly. And then out of nowhere, the emergency line flashes. You pick up the receiver, and on the other end is a woman. And she's screaming in absolute primal terror.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She manages to yell, "Please help me. Someone is in my house."
And then I'm guessing the line just goes dead.
Complete silence. Just dead air.
That's just terrifying.
It is. But that dead silence is actually the sound of a crime scene lying to you. Because today we are doing a deep dive into the meticulously documented last call case file. We're going to uncover what happens when the evidence itself is actually the murder weapon.
Right, which is such a fascinating angle for this deep dive, because if you're listening to this, you really need to put on your detective hat.
Oh, absolutely.
You have to understand that we are navigating a landscape of weaponized information here. I mean, we are so conditioned, especially with modern forensics, to rely on physical evidence to anchor us to the truth.
We trust the science.
Yeah, exactly. We trust the science. But forensic data can be curated. It can be meticulously staged to misdirect an investigator and to tell a highly specific, totally fabricated narrative.
Yeah. And the mission for our deep dive today is to walk you through this investigation step by step, right alongside the detectives. We're piecing together the clues, trying to understand a killer who seemed to be playing, honestly, an entirely different game.
A very dangerous game.
Right. So we have a dead woman, we have a mysterious phone call, and we have a wristwatch frozen at exactly 2:17 a.m. So the question is, was this a random murder or the beginning of something far darker?
Well, let's step right into that narrative. Because nothing in this case is a coincidence.
Right. So Ethan traces that dropped 2:17 a.m. call. It leads him and his partner, Detective Sarah Miller, out to the really wealthy outskirts of the city.
The big estates.
Yeah, exactly. They pull up to this massive old mansion, wrought iron gates, long winding driveway. They rush up the steps to the porch, weapons drawn, and they find the heavy wooden front door standing wide open to the storm.
Which, right off the bat, is the first behavioral anomaly of the night.
How so? I mean, someone was just screaming about an intruder.
Well, think about the psychology and the basic logistics of a home invasion. The primary objective of a burglar, or really any intruder, is to remain undetected for as long as possible.
Right, you want the element of surprise.
Exactly. So leaving a front door wide open in a residential neighborhood, even a wealthy, spread-out one, is an invitation for a passing patrol car or a wakeful neighbor to notice that something is wrong.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
An open door typically suggests one of two things. Either the victim threw it open in a desperate, panicked attempt to flee.
Like trying to run out into the rain.
Right. Or the perpetrator left in such a chaotic, messy hurry that they abandoned basic operational security.
But see, that's the crazy part. When Ethan and Sarah step inside, the physical environment completely contradicts that idea of panic or chaos.
The house was clean.
Immaculate. I'm talking eerily silent. There are no muddy footprints tracking the storm inside.
No wet boot prints on the hardwood.
Nothing. No knocked-over umbrella stands. The expensive rugs are perfectly flat, so they slowly make their way up the grand staircase, right? Clearing room by room, tension is high until they reach the master bedroom.
And that's where they find her.
Yeah. The homeowner. A wealthy businesswoman named Olivia Reed. She is lying on the floor dead from a single knife wound to the chest.
Okay, let us pause here and evaluate the forensic reality of this room.
Yeah.
Because it starkly opposes the emotional reality of that 911 call we just talked about.
Right, the terrifying scream.
Exactly. We have a victim who, ostensibly just minutes prior, was screaming for her life, shouting that someone was in her house. Yet, you're saying the physical space shows zero signs of a struggle.
None. And I really want to focus on that lack of a struggle, because to me, it defies the basic physics of a violent encounter. If someone is coming at you with a blade, your survival instinct just takes over, right?
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
A fatal struggle is violently kinetic.
Right.
Human beings do not simply stand still and accept a fatal blow, especially not one delivered from close range with a knife. You'd expect to see defensive wounds.
Like cuts on the
Yeah,
arms?
deep lacerations on the palms, the fingers, or the forearms as the victim attempts to grab the blade or, shield their vital organs.
Instinctive stuff.
Exactly. And you expect the environment to reflect that kinetic energy.
Right.
Lamps shattered, nightstands violently shunted away from the wall, bedding torn up.
But the room is like a museum exhibit. It's totally untouched.
Furthermore, the mechanics of a stabbing create highly specific blood spatter patterns. When a blade is violently withdrawn from a body, it creates cast-off.
Cast off.
Yeah, it's a linear pattern of blood droplets across the walls or the ceiling, and it trails the motion of the attacker's arm as they pull back.
Oh, wow. Okay. But the case file notes none of that is present here. The room is totally pristine. It's honestly like walking into a stage play right after the curtain drops.
Which brings us to the most glaring absence of all. The crime scene technicians arrive, right? And they begin processing the space. They are looking for the inevitable transfer of materials.
Because you can't just float into a room.
Right. In forensic science, this is known as Locard's exchange principle. It is literally the foundational concept of all physical evidence. Every contact leaves a trace.
So if I bump into you, I leave a microscopic fiber from my shirt on your jacket, and I take, I don't know, a microscopic flake of your skin with me.
Precisely. It is practically impossible for a human being to enter a room, commit a violent physical murder, and leave without depositing something of themselves or taking something of the victim.
Like DNA shedding.
Yeah, DNA shedding, hair follicles, skin cells, shoe impressions on the microscopic dust layer of the hardwood floor.
Yeah.
Yet, the technicians find no fingerprints.
Wait, none.
Not a partial smudge on the doorframe, not a latent print on the surrounding furniture. Nothing.
That is wild. And there are no signs of forced entry at any window either. And despite the proximity of those neighboring mansions, the wealthy area, nobody saw a vehicle or a person approach or leave the property.
So no witnesses, no trace evidence, no signs of a struggle.
It's literally as if a ghost committed the crime.
A ghost who is very good at cleaning up.
Right. But here's the thing. In the middle of this impossibly sterile room, they find something highly specific.
Right.
Laying on a side table is a mechanical wristwatch.
Okay. And the hands on this watch are stopped dead at exactly 2:17 a.m.
Wow.
The exact minute the emergency call came into the precinct.
Okay, see, this is where the physical evidence transitions from merely absent to actively theatrical.
Yeah, and I struggle to accept this at face value. Mechanically speaking, how does a watch just stop at the exact minute of a murder?
It doesn't.
Right. Unless it's smashed during a violent struggle, which we know didn't happen, a mechanical watch doesn't just spontaneously break.
No. The only logical conclusion is that the killer manually stopped the watch. They deliberately pulled the little crown out on the side to freeze the hands.
Exactly. But why? Unless the killer wanted us to know the time.
That is the only logical conclusion. The pristine nature of the room means we must discard the theory of a chaotic home invasion. When a scene is this forensically sterile, it indicates a highly premeditated, controlled execution.
The killer was in total control. Yes. They didn't just eliminate Olivia Reed. They managed the environment with surgical precision. The stopped watch is a signature. It is a piece of curated evidence designed to communicate a message to the investigators.
And that message is what? I control the timeline.
Exactly. I dictate when this happened, and I dictate what you see.
Man, that gives me chills. So, if the physical room is lying and the timeline is a staged performance, the physical evidence is basically a dead end.
Totally useless.
Ethan and Sarah can't rely on the how anymore. They have to pivot entirely to the why. They need to understand who Olivia Reed was because the motive is the only thing that can't be scrubbed clean with bleach.
And that brings us to victimology, which is often the key that unlocks a sterile crime scene. By understanding the victim's lifestyle, their professional dealings, their conflicts, and their secrets, investigators can map out a suspect pool.
Okay, so Ethan begins this methodical, grid-by-grid search of the mansion. He's opening every drawer, checking behind every painting. He's looking for the one thing the killer might have missed. Or perhaps the one thing the killer intentionally left behind.
Right, because if they left the watch, they might have left something else.
Exactly. And tucked away in a false bottom drawer in a home office desk, he finds a photograph.
Oh, a hidden photo.
Yes. It's an old picture of Olivia standing next to a man. But the man's face has been violently obliterated.
Obliterated how?
Like someone has taken a pen or a sharp object and literally gouged the face out of the glossy paper, just aggressively scratched it away. And written on the back of this photograph in stark, jagged handwriting, is a single sentence.
What did it say?
You can never escape the past.
Okay, the psychological shift here is massive.
Yeah, it feels different than the clean room.
Completely different. We have moved from the cold, clinical precision of a sterile room to an artifact radiating intense emotional volatility.
It feels like pure hatred.
It is. Defacing a photograph in this specific manner, gouging out the face, is a deeply intimate act of psychological violence. It takes deliberate physical pressure and time to scratch through photo paper like that.
It's not a quick thing.
No,
Yeah.
it is not just an expression of anger, it is an act of erasure. The perpetrator is symbolically destroying this person's identity.
Well, it gives the detectives their first real lead. They process the photo, they show it to Olivia's remaining associates, and they quickly identify the man with the scratched-out face.
Okay, who is he?
His name is Daniel Brooks. And when they pull the historical files on the relationship between Daniel Brooks and Olivia Reed, they uncover a motive of catastrophic proportions.
Let's hear it.
So 10 years ago, Daniel Brooks and Olivia Reed were equal partners in this highly lucrative investment firm. They were making millions. But the partnership imploded. Daniel was indicted for embezzling millions of dollars from their own clients.
White-collar crime.
Massive white-collar crime.
Yep.
And the star witness for the prosecution, it was Olivia.
Oh, she turned on him.
She sure did. Her testimony on the stand, presenting the financial ledgers, pointing the finger right at him. It was the final nail in his coffin.
Wow. We really have to comprehend the total devastation of that kind of betrayal. When a business partner, someone you trust with your livelihood, accuses you of massive corporate fraud, the collateral damage extends far beyond just a prison sentence.
Because it ruins your name.
Exactly. The investigative notes indicate that Daniel became a complete pariah. His professional reputation was vaporized overnight. His assets were likely frozen and seized in civil litigation to pay back the clients.
He probably lost everything.
He did. The stress and public shame completely dismantled his family life. He lost his career, his wealth, and his family entirely because of Olivia's testimony.
So if you're looking for a suspect,
If an investigator is looking for a psychological driver strong enough to produce a meticulously planned, theatrical murder, revenge for the absolute destruction of one's life is at the very top of the list.
Daniel Brooks has a huge motive. But here is the problem. His alibi appears airtight.
Oh, of course it does.
So if he didn't commit the murder, then who did? Ethan and Sarah pull Daniel's whereabouts for the night of the murder, focusing specifically on that 2:17 a.m. window, right, because of the watch.
Right, the curated timeline.
And they hit a total brick wall. Daniel wasn't lurking in the shadows outside Olivia's mansion. At 2:17 a.m., Daniel was attending a massive, high-profile charity gala on the complete opposite side of the city.
Oh, a gala. That's a strong alibi.
He was surrounded by hundreds of prominent witnesses.
An airtight alibi is incredibly frustrating for an investigator when it belongs to your prime suspect. And a public gala is perhaps the most robust alibi one can possess.
Because there's so many people.
It isn't just one friend swearing he was sleeping on their couch. A gala generates a massive digital and physical footprint.
Right, like photos and stuff.
Exactly. There are timestamp photographs from the event photographers. There are selfies people take in the background. There are credit card transactions at the open bar or the valet.
It's documented everywhere.
There are dozens of independent witnesses. People who do not know Daniel Brooks well enough to risk a perjury charge, who can definitively place him in that ballroom at the exact moment the 911 call was made.
The laws of physics dictate he cannot be in two places at once.
Exactly.
Okay, I understand the physical impossibility, but let's look at this from a different angle. Could he have hired a professional?
A hitman.
Yeah. Think about the mechanics of a contract hit. If you want someone dead and you know you are the most obvious suspect because of your history, the smartest thing you can do is place yourself in a room with 300 cameras while a professional handles the violent part. It's the ultimate insulation, right?
Well, the theory of a proxy killer is perfectly logical, and it is standard investigative procedure to explore it. However, the behavioral evidence we found at the crime scene directly contradicts the profile of a contract killer.
Really? How so?
Hitmen operate on a strict economy of effort. Their goal is efficient elimination and immediate extraction. Get in, do the job, get out.
They don't linger.
They do not typically engage in the theatrical staging of a frozen wristwatch to match a 911 call. More importantly, they do not leave a defaced photograph with a melodramatic handwritten note about escaping the past hidden in a drawer.
Ah, right. The scratch marks.
The single knife wound, the meticulous cleanup, the taunting timeline. These elements suggest a deeply personal emotional investment. It requires the perpetrator to derive psychological satisfaction from being in the room, orchestrating the terror.
A hitman wouldn't care.
A contract killer views the victim as a paycheck. This killer viewed Olivia as a nemesis.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. The emotional signature doesn't match a financial transaction. So if Daniel couldn't physically do it and a hitman wouldn't have left those specific psychological breadcrumbs, the investigation basically stalls out.
It's a dead end.
Exactly. For 3 agonizing days, the case file shows zero forward momentum. No new forensics, no fresh leads, just silence.
And that silence is a weapon in itself.
What do you mean?
The killer is allowing the investigative pressure to build. They are letting Ethan and Sarah exhaust their primary theories. It is a demonstration of extreme patience and control. They're watching the cops run in circles.
Wow. But the silence breaks in the most audacious way possible. 3 days after the murder, a small, unmarked package is delivered in the Daily Mail directly to the police precinct.
Bold.
Very bold. Addressed specifically to Detective Ethan Cross.
Oh, wow. Directly to the lead investigator.
Yep. Ethan takes it to an evidence room, carefully opens it, and finds a standard digital voice recorder. He presses play. Through the tiny speaker, they hear Olivia Reed's voice.
The victim.
The victim. She's breathless, her voice trembling with just absolute terror. She whispers, "If you're hearing this, I may already be dead."
Oh, my God.
And then the recording just cuts off. No explanation, no names, nothing. It's just that one terrifying sentence.
Sending a recording of the victim directly to the lead detective is a monumental escalation.
It's basically a taunt, right?
It is a calculated drip feed of terror. But analytically, we must treat this audio file not as a ghost speaking from beyond the grave, but as another piece of physical evidence. And like the watch, it has been curated.
And this is where Detective Sarah Miller's analytical skills really shine. She takes the recorder down to the audiovisual lab, puts on these heavy, noise-canceling headphones, and listens to the dead space of the recording.
She's listening to the background.
Exactly. She listens past the panic in Olivia's voice. And underneath the hiss of the tape, buried way in the background, Sarah isolates a distinct mechanical sound. It's a rhythmic, resonant chime.
Let me guess. A clock.
A grandfather clock striking the hour.
Okay. This leads us into the fascinating realm of audio forensics.
Oh, I was hoping you'd explain this part.
Yeah, when investigators analyze an audio recording, they aren't just listening to the spoken words. They're analyzing the acoustic signature of the environment, which is known as the room tone.
Room tone. Okay.
Every physical space has a unique audio fingerprint based on its dimensions, the materials on the walls, and the ambient background noise. Things like HVAC systems, traffic outside, or in this case, mechanical clocks.
Things we normally tune out.
Right. Human ears naturally filter out this background hum, but a microphone captures everything. By running the audio through a spectrogram, which provides a visual representation of the sound frequencies, an acoustic engineer can isolate specific hertz ranges.
And a clock is pretty distinct, right?
Very. A large grandfather clock has a very specific low-frequency resonance when the internal hammer strikes the chime. It's unmistakable once you isolate it.
Well, isolating that chime is the pivot point of the entire timeline, because Ethan and Sarah immediately drive back to Olivia's sprawling mansion. They walk through the foyer, the living rooms, the studies, and they confirm a crucial negative fact.
Which is?
Olivia Reed does not own a grandfather clock. There isn't one anywhere on the property.
The implications of that missing clock are profound.
Because it means she wasn't at home.
Exactly. It means that the terrifying audio clip, the "I may already be dead" speech, was not recorded in her bedroom while a killer was breaking down her door. It was recorded in an entirely different acoustic environment.
Which means the 2.17 a.m. timeline they've been relying on is a complete and utter fabrication.
It was a stage play all along.
So the audio forensics team analyzes the specific acoustic properties of the chime. They cross-reference the manufacturer or the style of the reverberation. And this acoustic clue, combined with some digital tracing, leads the detectives far outside the city limits.
Where do they go?
They drive deep into a heavily wooded area, miles and miles away from the pristine mansion, and they arrive at this dilapidated, abandoned cabin.
Very horror movie.
Extremely. The contrast between the luxury of the crime scene and the isolation of this cabin is jarring. They draw their weapons and breach the door. Inside, they don't find the killer, but they find the killer's mind.
What's in there?
It is a full-blown stalker's lair.
Physical manifestation of malignant obsession.
That's a great way to put it. The walls of this cabin are completely papered with surveillance photographs of Olivia Reed. We're talking hundreds of images. Pictures of her getting coffee, pictures of her walking to her car, long lens shots taken through the windows of her office.
Oh, they've been watching her for a long time.
It proves that the killer hadn't just snapped in a moment of rage. They had been shadowing her, totally invisible, for months.
To conduct a surveillance operation of this magnitude without detection
Right.
requires immense discipline.
Yeah, she was a wealthy, high-profile woman. She'd probably noticed someone following her.
Exactly. This is a highly organized offender. They understand the routines of their target, they know how to blend into the environment, and they possess the technical skill to gather this intelligence.
They were playing the long game.
It reinforces the profile we built at the crime scene. This perpetrator is meticulous, patient, and deeply, deeply methodical.
But the photos of Olivia aren't what stop Ethan in his tracks. The escalation in this cabin is visceral.
What else is there?
Painted across the far wall in massive, dripping red letters is a message. It says, "The truth dies tonight."
Okay, theatrical again.
Yes, but here's the kicker. Pinned directly beneath the word truth is a single, clear photograph. But it's not a picture of Olivia.
Who is it?
It is a photograph of Detective Ethan Cross.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the moment the entire geometry of the investigation collapses and reshapes itself.
It's terrifying, right?
It is. The hunter has just signaled to the bloodhound that the bloodhound is actually the prey.
And this forces us to ask a deeply uncomfortable question. Why is the lead detective on the wall? Prior to answering that 2:01 a.m. dispatch call, Ethan Cross had never crossed paths with Olivia Reed. He was just the detective who cut the shift, you know?
Just doing his job.
Right. So is the killer just a megalomaniac playing cat and mouse with the police department, or is there a connective tissue we are totally missing?
When a perpetrator specifically targets the investigating officer, it generally falls into two categories.
Okay, what's the first?
The first is intimidation. The detective is getting too close to the truth and needs to be warned off.
Like back off or else.
Right. But that doesn't fit the behavioral profile here. This killer has been actively guiding Ethan, leaving a breadcrumb trail of a stopped watch, a defaced photo, and a mailed tape directly to him.
They want his attention.
Exactly. They want Ethan involved. Therefore, we must look at the second category.
Okay.
The investigator is not a random variable. The investigator is a fundamental component of the grievance.
He's part of the motive.
Yes. This shift is psychologically terrifying for Ethan. The illusion of objective professional distance is completely shattered. He is no longer analyzing a crime. He is standing at the center of the killer's crosshairs.
And that realization triggers a complete psychological crisis for Ethan. The case file notes detail his state of mind that night. He returns to his apartment, but sleep is just impossible.
I wouldn't be able to sleep either.
He just sits in the dark, staring at the surveillance photo of himself that he pulled from the cabin wall. He is trying to force his brain to find the link. And then, in the early hours of the morning, a memory surfaces.
A connection.
Yes. He thinks about Olivia Reed's face, but not the face of the deceased woman on the hardwood floor. He thinks of a younger version of her face, a memory from 10 years ago.
Well, human memory is fallible, but significant emotional or professional milestones can leave these indelible subconscious imprints. 10 years is a long time, but a face connected to a major life event will eventually break through the cognitive noise.
Especially when your life is on the line. Because a decade ago, Ethan wasn't a homicide detective. He was working as a private investigator in the private sector.
Okay, a PI.
And he remembers a specific client who walked into his office, a young, ambitious businesswoman who hired him to conduct a forensic accounting investigation into her business partner, whom she suspected of embezzlement.
No, yeah.
Yeah, that young client was Olivia Reed.
Wow. This is the hidden connective tissue. This is the variable the killer knew existed.
The variable that elevates Ethan from a random detective to a central figure in this tragedy.
Exactly.
But Ethan doesn't just trust his memory. He drives to an off-site storage unit and digs through dusty boxes of his old archived PI case files. He finds the Olivia Reed dossier.
He kept the files.
Thank goodness he did. He spreads the decade-old documents across his table. The bank statements, the email transcripts, the corporate ledgers he gathered to prove Daniel Brooks was stealing millions. But now, Ethan is looking at these documents not as a young PI eager to please a wealthy client, but as a seasoned homicide detective.
with a trained eye.
And with 10 years of investigative experience, the illusion breaks. He sees the inconsistencies, he sees the metadata anomalies in the emails, he realizes the horrifying truth.
Which is,
Daniel Brooks never stole a dime, he was entirely innocent.
let's really delve into the mechanics of how a sophisticated frame-up like this actually operates, because it is incredibly difficult to execute.
Yeah, how do you fake millions of dollars disappearing?
Fabricating corporate fraud requires a deep understanding of financial systems.
Hmm.
Olivia couldn't just say Daniel took the money. She had to create a digital paper trail that held up to scrutiny.
Right.
This likely involves setting up shell companies offshore to obscure the ultimate beneficiaries of transactions. It involved doctoring digital ledgers using double-entry bookkeeping to make it appear as though funds were being siphoned from client accounts directly into accounts bearing Daniel's name.
So she built an entire fake reality.
It is a painstaking high-level deception.
And Ethan realizes the most devastating part of this deception. Olivia didn't present this fake evidence to the police herself. She hired Ethan.
She used him to legitimize it.
Yes, she pointed him toward specific servers, suggested he look at specific offshore accounts. It's like following a GPS that has been hacked, you know? You think you are doing the driving, you think you're making all the right turns, but someone else programmed the destination.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
Ethan, acting in total good faith, gathered the forged documents, compiled the damning report, and handed it over to the authorities.
He was the unwitting instrument of Daniel's destruction.
Yeah.
The psychological weight of this realization for someone who has dedicated his life to law enforcement, it must be crushing. Ethan joined the police force to uncover the truth and protect the innocent.
And now he realizes he ruined an innocent man's life.
Now, sitting in that storage unit, he recognizes that his past actions, however heavily manipulated they were by Olivia, were the catalyst for a profound injustice. Olivia weaponized his diligence to destroy an innocent man.
He basically sharpened the axe and handed it to the executioner without ever knowing who was on the block. Ethan didn't just happen to catch the last call case. He helped manufacture the motive for it a decade ago.
Exactly. This revelation forces us to completely recontextualize the entire investigation. The killer is intimately aware of Ethan's darkest professional secret.
Right, they know what he did.
The killer knows Ethan's role in the framing of Daniel Brooks. This means the last week hasn't been a pursuit of a fugitive at all. It has been a guided, psychological torture session designed to make Ethan confront his own sins.
Wow. So the killer knows Ethan knows. Ethan knows the killer knows. The board is set for the final move. We arrive at the climax of the investigation.
A confrontation.
Ethan's phone rings. The voice on the other end is heavily electronically distorted, masking all identifiable cadence or tone. The voice issues a single command. Meet me at the mansion. Come alone. And then a dial tone.
Okay, from a tactical standpoint, agreeing to this demand violates every protocol in modern policing.
You don't just walk into a trap.
You absolutely do not proceed to a secondary location unaccompanied at the specific request of a murder suspect. But Ethan is operating under an immense burden of guilt.
He feels responsible.
His need to confront the ghost of his past, to somehow atone for his role in the destruction of Daniel Brooks, it just completely overrides his tactical training.
So he drives back out to the sprawling estate. It is the dead of night. The mansion is pitch black, silent, save for a single warm light glowing from the upstairs master bedroom.
The exact room where they found Olivia's body.
Exactly. Ethan draws his sidearm. He moves through the dark foyer, his heart hammering against his ribs, creeping up the grand staircase. He reaches the open door of the bedroom, steps inside, and finds the mastermind waiting for him.
But it isn't Daniel Brooks.
It isn't a shadowy contract killer. It isn't Daniel Brooks. Standing in the center of the room, holding her police-issue service weapon aimed squarely at his chest with a chillingly calm smile, is his partner, Detective Sarah Miller.
The magnitude of this betrayal cannot be overstated.
His partner?
The person who's been riding shotgun in his squad car, the person sharing his coffee, reviewing the forensic reports with him, and helping him clear the rooms of this very mansion. She was the architect of the nightmare.
She was the ghost. Sarah holds him at gunpoint and drops the final piece of the puzzle. She confesses everything. Daniel Brooks, the innocent man whose life was reduced to ash. Daniel Brooks was Sarah's father.
The motive snaps into blinding, devastating focus.
Sarah explains the fallout that the police reports never captured. After Olivia's testimony ruined him, Daniel Brooks couldn't survive the shame and the financial ruin. He fell into a severe depression, his health rapidly declined, and he passed away.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
Sarah didn't just lose her family's wealth, she lost her father to Olivia's fabricated lies. And from that moment on, Sarah's life became a singular, meticulously planned, long con revenge plot.
To fully grasp this, we really must examine the psychology of deep cover operations and the maintenance of a false identity. Sarah had to completely suppress her true self.
She must have changed her name.
She likely changed her legal name to distance herself from the disgraced Brooks legacy. She endured the grueling psychological and physical evaluations of the police academy.
That's years of training.
Exactly. She spent years walking the beat as a patrol officer, proving her loyalty to the department, all to earn a detective shield. And through sheer manipulation of the precinct's bureaucratic assignment system, she managed to get partnered with a specific man who helped ruin her father.
That is dedication.
The level of cognitive dissonance and, frankly, sociopathy required to sit next to Ethan every single day to feign friendship and professional camaraderie while actively plotting his demise is staggering.
But her confession makes every single bizarre piece of evidence make terrifying sense. The entire case was a mirror maze she built specifically for Ethan.
Let's trace her steps to the evidence log, because it's brilliant. The 2:17 a.m. 911 call. Sarah executed it.
But it was Olivia's voice.
She either utilized advanced audio manipulation of Olivia's voice or, far more chillingly, she forced Olivia to make that call at knife point before delivering the fatal blow.
Oh, wow. That is dark.
She hung up the phone and then manually pulled the crown on the wristwatch to freeze the hands. This established an undeniable, objective timeline that she herself could later verify as a responding officer.
Because she was the one collecting the evidence.
Exactly.
And the audio recording mailed to the station.
Sarah mailed it. She deliberately recorded it in an environment with a grandfather clock, knowing that Ethan would initially miss the background noise. She relied on her own role as the sharp-eared partner to discover the audio clue, subtly steering the investigation out of the city,
Leading them straight to the abandoned cabin.
which she spent months preparing. She took the surveillance photos herself. She painted the bloody message on the wall.
And pinned Ethan's photo up.
She pinned it up to ensure he would panic, dig into his old files, and realize his own complicity. Her objective was never merely to kill Olivia.
Right, because killing her wasn't enough.
A simple murder would not balance the scales. Her objective was total psychological annihilation. She needed Ethan to understand the depth of his guilt before she executed him for his role in her father's death.
Man, it is a masterclass in psychological warfare. She stands there in the glowing light of the bedroom, looks Ethan dead in the eye and says, "You helped destroy him too, you collected the evidence." And then, without hesitation, Sarah pulls the trigger, point-blank range.
Click. The hollow, metallic sound of a critical miscalculation.
The gun is totally empty. Ethan exhales a breath he's been holding for a decade. He looks at her, the shock fading from his eyes, and reveals that his detective instincts hadn't been completely blinded by guilt.
He knew.
The case notes indicate that over the last 24 hours, Ethan had grown suspicious of Sarah's behavioral patterns.
Oh, interesting. What tipped him off?
Perhaps she was a little too eager to push the Daniel Brooks hitman theory. Perhaps her discovery of the grandfather clock chime felt just a little too perfectly timed. Whatever the subconscious trigger was, he recognized he was being steered.
He's a good detective.
He is. Before driving to the mansion, while they were still at the precinct, Ethan had secretly accessed her locker and emptied the magazine of her service weapon.
Wow.
Suddenly, the silence of the estate is shattered by wailing sirens. Floodlights illuminate the grounds. A tactical unit, positioned by Ethan in advance, swarms the bedroom. Sarah is tackled, disarmed, and placed in handcuffs.
So the mastermind is caught.
The mastermind is caught, the revenge plot is thwarted. It feels like the definitive end of a very dark chapter.
It does. It provides the emotional resolution that our brains inherently crave when digesting a narrative of crime and punishment.
The bad guy goes to jail.
Right. The corrupter exposed, the detective's intuition triumphs, and order is restored to the chaotic world. However, this is precisely why I issued a warning at the beginning of our deep dive.
Uh-oh.
The most dangerous lies in any investigation are not the ones told by the suspects. They are the lies investigators tell themselves when they believe they have won.
When it's wrapped in a bow.
When a narrative resolves with that level of neat cinematic perfection, it is almost a guarantee that you are missing the underlying truth.
And Ethan and Sarah missed the biggest truth of all.
They really did.
We have to fast forward 6 months to the final earth-shattering reality of this case file. Sarah has been convicted. She is sitting in a sterile concrete cell in a maximum security prison. She has lost her freedom, her career, and her future.
But she thinks she won.
Exactly. In her mind, she harbors the grim satisfaction that she successfully avenged her father by eliminating Olivia Reed. But then, a corrections officer stops at the bars of her cell and hands her a standard piece of incoming mail. It's a plain envelope with no return address.
Okay.
Sarah tears it open. Inside is a single, glossy photograph. It is a picture of Olivia Reed. But Olivia is not lying on a hardwood floor. She is sitting at a cafe, holding up a copy of a foreign newspaper.
Proof of life.
The date on the newspaper proves definitively that the photo was taken just weeks earlier, 6 months after Sarah supposedly plunged a knife into her chest.
I want you to imagine the absolute psychological collapse Sarah experiences in this exact second. For 10 years, her entire identity, her moral compass, and every single action she took was engineered around this grand design of vengeance.
She gave up her whole life.
She surrendered her humanity to become the perfect predator. And with a single image of a newspaper, that entire decade of sacrifice is rendered entirely meaningless.
With trembling hands, Sarah flips the photograph over. Written on the back in an elegant, steady script are 4 devastating words. You killed the wrong woman.
Let's really unpack the staggering implications of this twist, because it completely reframes the entire power dynamic of the case.
This changes everything.
Sarah believed she was the apex predator. She believed she was the puppet master orchestrating a flawless manipulation of the police department, of Ethan, and of the timeline. But she was never the grandmaster.
She's just a pawn.
She was a pawn being manipulated on a much larger board by Olivia Reed.
So Olivia knew. She had to have known Sarah was coming for her.
Undoubtedly. We must remember who Olivia Reed is at her core. She is a woman who, 10 years prior, possessed the intellect, resources, and total ruthlessness to flawlessly fabricate a massive corporate fraud and destroy her own business partner.
She's an apex manipulator.
Exactly. At some point during Sarah's decade-long infiltration of the police department, Olivia identified the threat. She recognized that Daniel Brooks's daughter was inside the precinct, closing the net.
But instead of running away,
which would mean abandoning her wealth and living as a fugitive, Olivia chose a far more sophisticated countermeasure. She used the kinetic energy of Sarah's revenge plot against her.
she faked her own death using a body double.
Precisely. Sarah's desperate need for revenge provided Olivia with the perfect exit strategy. Olivia allowed the plot to unfold, knowing she could vanish seamlessly, while the police focused entirely on Sarah's elaborate guilt.
But let's dive into the sheer logistics of that. How do you actually fake a death and fool a medical examiner? You can't just put a random body in a house and call it a day, right?
Faking a death, particularly a violent homicide, is an immense forensic hurdle. For the coroner to issue a death certificate for Olivia Reed, they require identification.
Right.
But in the chaotic initial hours of a murder investigation, if a body is found in the victim's secure home, wearing the victim's bespoke clothing and possessing the victim's general physical dimensions, a presumptive identification is often made by the responding detectives.
And the responding detectives were Ethan and Sarah.
Exactly.
Sarah was the killer. So Sarah isn't going to question the identity of the woman she stabbed in a dark room, and Ethan is completely compromised by his own guilt and trauma.
The investigators themselves provided the confirmation bias needed to push the preliminary identification through the system. Olivia likely manipulated her own dental or medical records beforehand to ensure any subsequent routine checks aligned with the double.
She orchestrated the environment so perfectly that the police system simply processed the paperwork without realizing they were documenting a ghost.
Which leaves us with a lingering, deeply unsettling reality to confront.
If the real Olivia Reed is out there right now, thousands of miles away, enjoying her vast stolen wealth under a new name, then who was the woman on the floor of the mansion?
That is the true tragedy of this case. That unknown woman is the ultimate collateral damage of two warring obsessions.
Who was she? Was she a runaway? A sex worker? Someone Olivia found who just shared her exact height, weight, and hair color?
We may never know.
And think about the sheer darkness required to execute this. How on earth did Olivia coerce or convince an innocent woman to stand in the master bedroom of that dark mansion, dressed in Olivia's clothes, at exactly 2:01 a.m.?
Did she drug her? Did she pay her to be there for some fabricated reason?
Knowing she was positioning her perfectly to take the fatal thrust of Sarah's knife? The level of profound sociopathic calculation is beyond comprehension.
It is the darkest facet of human nature. It forces us to acknowledge that sometimes the most intricate, meticulously solved cases are built on a foundation of total illusion.
You really have to sit with the fact that at the end of the day, despite the brilliance of the detectives, despite the decade of obsessive planning by Sarah, the true ghost in the evidence case won.
Olivia Reed committed the perfect crime because she tricked the police into committing it for her.
It's like we said at the start, when the evidence looks absolutely perfect, when the watches stop precisely at 2:17 a.m., you aren't looking at the truth. You're just looking at the performance they wanted you to see. Until next time, keep your eyes open and question everything.